मुख्यमंत्री जी क्या स्कीम दे रहे हैं, तो वो सारा चीज वो बहुत ही ब्रीफ में रील के माध्यम से बताते हैं. तो प्लीज चेक देयर इंस्टाग्राम हैंडल एंड ऑल social media handle, including LinkedIn if you are on there, because it's a professional network, and Facebook and Twitter as well. It will really help you to gain the knowledge of this unique thing. And now would like to request CA Sachin M. Jain, our GST expert, to share the screen and make the PPT also visible to all. And it's my proud privilege to introduce him. He's specialized in GST, and the more interesting topic relating to GST is refund, risky exporter advisory, what he is doing, reconciliation, review, department, audit, appeals. There are so many things into GST also, and he is doing that. We are very proud of you, Sachin bhai. You are doing great work, and it's since the GST has come, he is into it, and his detailed aspect of all the GST, and he's also dealing in income tax, company, LLP, loans, customs, audit, and business support service. And would like to request everyone to connect him on LinkedIn for long-term association session of maybe of 1 day, 2 day. Okay, but we have to be see the association has to be a long term. So with this brief introduction, we welcome you, Sachin bhai, and now floor is yours for today and tomorrow as well. And with this, just one announcement: if you have any query anytime, you just post in the question tab. As and when it is possible for the speaker, for our Sachin bhai to take, he will take as per his convenience. So you can post all question in the question tab. Make it an interactive session and make it a successful webinar and the masterclass. So over to you, Sachin bhai.
Thank you so much, Viraj ji. And see, हमने सबने चीज सुनी है. We have always heard that sharing is caring, but I extending that, I believe that sharing knowledge is beyond that. Okay. And moreover, I would really appreciate Viraj bhai, Connect Easy, and the whole team who is taking so much hard efforts to, and they are doing a fantabulous job by sharing effortlessly knowledge and making all the facilities available to the members to learn, to improve their skills, and definitely implement that knowledge that they are gaining. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. So today's topic is will revolve around aspect of GST and refunds under GST matters. So
Sachin bhai, your screen is not visible. So yeah, if you want to share the PPT, you can, as and when you feel like, you can share that. Yes, now it is visible.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Perfect.
Okay. Refund has always been a very sought about item for any taxpayer, maybe in GST, maybe in income tax, or for that any matter. Since the start of GST, refund has been a hot topic of discussion for everyone, as there are several issues, complexity, misconception, and also lack of awareness among the industry. And in today's, we'll try to discuss all the aspects which are connected to refunds under the GST. We'll discuss the type of refunds. We'll discuss the type of refunds, who are eligible for refunds, who are not, and what are the procedures to claim the refunds, what are the common mistakes because of which refunds get affected, and definitely we'll also discuss the best practices which we need to follow, wherein we can ensure the smooth flow of refunds. First of all, what is GST? GST is a value-added tax levied on both supply of goods and supply of services, and it has been replaced by old indirect taxes. The main agenda of introducing GST was of one nation, one tax. And definitely GST was introduced with effect from 1st July 2017. So why GST was introduced? There are many reasons, but these are the possible reasons, major reasons for GST being introduced. Just a moment. विराट भाई, कैन आई हाइड दिस ऑप्शन जो सेटिंग का जो ऑप्शन आ रहा है, कैन आई हाइड दैट?
Yeah, that orange arrow you have to do.
अच्छा,
Hide control panel.
हाँ हाँ हाँ, मिल गया, थैंक यू. So, why GST? So, GST was being introduced with the intention of simplifying the tax procedures in India. As we all know, in India, taxation is among the very complex matter, and to reduce the compliance burden, previously there were n number of different taxes: service tax, VAT, excise, and whatnot. And now, because of introduction of GST, the number of compliances procedures has reduced drastically. Moreover, reducing the cascading effect, the tax on tax, reduce the overall cost of product, includes both services and goods, and definitely it helped to increase the revenue of government. Day in day out, we are always getting alert in the news, or maybe in any news communication, that this month the GST revenue is 1 point this much crore, and so on. Day by day, the revenue of GST is getting increased. So our honorable Prime Minister Modi ji always believed GST is not the goods and services tax. He believed that it's a good and a simple tax. And I don't know how many amongst us or among the business also has started realizing this, that is it a good and simple tax or not. But definitely it has initially GST, many businesses are facing a lot of problems and challenges, but no doubt slowly and gradually the GST has got evolved, established, and the number of issues which a taxpayer or a business was facing at the time of implementation or transition has reduced down drastically. And moreover, we have seen that GST Council, CBIC, has always been very adaptive. Any issues which has been identified by a business or a particular industry and has been raised to the platform has been addressed, and possible resolution has been provided by way of amendments in the act or notification, or has been also been explained by way of circulars. We'll move ahead. So I've read a quote, a very interesting quote I came across, that fine is a tax for doing something wrong, and tax is a fine for doing something right. Okay, so we'll proceed ahead. So refunds under GST has been explained under section 54, wherein refund includes refund of taxes paid on IGST on zero-rated supplies of goods or services, or both, or inputs or input services, means ITC, used in making such zero-rated supplies. What is zero-rated supplies? We'll discuss that ahead in detail. Or refund of taxes on supply of goods regarded as deemed exports, or refund of unutilized ITC as provided in subsection 3, which is related to inverted duty structure. What is inverted duty structure? We'll definitely discuss ahead. Now, what is refund? We have discussed. Now, when refund has been provided. So refund is granted in following situations. Refund is granted of taxes paid on export of goods or services or of inputs or input services made for such exports. Simply meaning, when a taxpayer makes export sales or SEZ sales, he get the refunds of ITC and the IGST paid. Or when the refund of unutilized ITC under subsection 3 of section 54, which means inverted duty structure, and a refund of taxes paid on supplies which is not provided either wholly or partially, which means cancellation of contract, and refund of tax in pursuance of section 77, which means wrong tax has been paid. For example, IGST was paid considering to be an interstate transaction instead of CGST and SGST, and vice versa. In such cases also a refund can be claimed. Adding further to it, refund of taxes and interest or any other amount paid by the applicant, and if the incidence of tax has not been passed, or any other category as may be recommended by the council. Refunds under GST has been broadly classified and been summarized in this particular section, rules and notification. So section which governs refunds mostly covers under section 54 to 58. Rules, CGST rules, which we CGST rule 2017, which are mostly governed by rule number 89 to 97A, and there are regular notification and circular being issued by CBIC. So we'll discuss the type of refunds. Types of refunds. So this is a screenshot of the portal, GST portal, which describes the different types of transactions or the situations when refund can be claimed. We'll discuss each of the category in detail. Like I can read out few of that. Refund of excess balance in the cash ledger, refund of ITC on exports of goods or services without payment of tax, means exports made under LUT, or on account of supplies made to SEZ without payment of tax, means again under LUT. Refunds of ITC accumulated inverted duty structure on account of recipient by the deemed exporter, and so on. We'll discuss each of the points ahead. First, let's discuss upon the topic excess balance in electronic cash ledger. Any person can claim refund under this head when there is an excess cash balance in the electronic credit ledger. We all know in GST there are two types of ledger. One is electronic cash ledger, second is electronic credit ledger. Credit ledger is a ledger where whatever purchases or inward supplies we have when the taxpayer is taken, and while filing 3B, GSTR 3B, we need to update those details, and accordingly our ITC ledger is getting credited, and when we make the payments through DRC through GSTR 3B, so all that amount get debited from electronic credit ledger. Then electronic cash ledger, when we go to make the payments of taxes while filing GSTR 3B, or let's say DRC 03 also. So in that case, we have to load the money into the cash ledger. And also this kind of refund, this situation arises when generally when there is any excess GST deposited into electronic credit ledger by mistake, or also there are some kind of businesses wherein they get the credit of TDS and TCS. In such case also, after filing the TDS and TCS returns, the money get loaded into the electronic cash ledger, and which can be utilized for the payment of outward liability, or if there is any excess cash balance after that, it can be claimed as refund. So that such kind of refunds get classified under this category. And needless to mention, whatever category or transaction type of transactions is been done, we got to make the filing of refunds category wise. Again, I'll show this picture, a screenshot, wherein we have to select the appropriate category at the time of filing the refund application, or else our refund application will get rejected. We'll move ahead. Zero-weighted supplies. Now, this is a very common and very interesting and important type of transaction, wherein this particular zero-weighted supplies has been defined under section 16 of the IGST Act, which says zero-weighted supply means exports of goods or services or both, or supplies to SEZ for authorized operations. Very short and simple, very clear. So exports का simple meaning होता है taking goods from India to a place outside India, ठीक है? And supplies to SEZ means simply that when a person from India supplies to SEZ unit, and the said transaction has to be listed under the authorized operation list. There's a list being prescribed by wherein the list of transactions has been prescribed, which qualifies as a authorized operations. Major of the transactions, sale and purchase kind of transaction, are be covered under authorized operations. So under such cases, you get the refunds of ITC and IGST accordingly. We'll discuss this further more in detail. So here is a simple meaning of exports of goods. Export of goods means taking goods from India to a place outside India. This has been defined under the section 2 subsection clause 5 of IGST Act. We'll move ahead. Now is what is export of services? Export of services means when a service provider is located in India, service recipient is outside India, and money has been derived in convertible foreign exchange, and the place of supply falls outside India. Yeah, the important each and every point under this definition, which has been defined under section 2 clause 6 of IGST Act, export of services, each of the condition has to be strictly followed. Only then it qualifies as export of services, and only then the benefits under the GST law of refunds and all will be permitted. There are many cases where where we have seen, yeah, and I'm sure even you all might have come across that when a person from India is providing services to a person outside India, and where he may also get money in foreign exchange, but not always necessarily that will qualify as export of services, because one of the important criteria is place of supply also should be outside India. So that has to be taken care. All the conditions has to be followed and complied strictly. So there are two modes of exports. Exports without payment of tax, wherein the taxpayer get the refund of ITC, accumulated ITC. The second mode is exports with payment of IGST, where the taxpayer can get the refunds of IGST which he has paid. So let's discuss about exports with payment of tax, with payment of IGST first. So what is the process, how the exporter has to make the documentation, what are the process from making the sale up till getting the refunds. We'll discuss that process in a picture form. First of all, when an exporter plans to export goods with payment of IGST, so he has to prepare an invoice, specifically mentioned with payment of IGST, and IGST has to be mentioned on the invoice. He has to prepare the shipping bill. For every export of goods, there has to be a shipping bill, wherein in shipping bill there are two options available, with payment of IGST and under LUT. So accordingly, appropriate option has to be selected. GST returns has to be filed on timely basis, regular basis, both GST R1 and 3B. No need to file any separate refund application. Yeah, this is the beauty of making the exports of goods with payment of IGST, wherein no separate refund application has to be filed. Your GST returns being filed is deemed to be the application. Data, after filing GST returns, data have been matched, validated from GST and transmitted to IceGate. And after the validation at IceGate, once the refund, the details and all details as per GST returns and details as per custom records get matches, validated, the scroll is generated by the customs department. And once the scroll is generated, it is sent through PFMS, and after that, money is received into the bank account. Generally, this whole process takes around 5 to 10 days, 10 working days after filing your GSTR 3B. Okay, so we'll again just quickly just brief it up. Invoice has to be prepared with payment of IGST. Shipping bill, we have to select the option with payment of IGST, and IGST amount is specifically mentioned on shipping bill. Okay, and the GST return has to be filed. No separate refund application is required. Data are being validated and transmitted to IceGate. IceGate is a platform of customs department, and once the customs department get the details from GSTN, all the details are being matched with the custom records, and customs officer generate the scroll. Then it is the refund will be processed through PFMS and money is received to the bank account. We'll discuss what is the export of services with payment of IGST. First of all, again, we have to prepare the invoice with payment of IGST. No need of any shipping bill, because in case of export of services, there is no such shipping bill. We need to file the GST returns. We need to ensure that all the monies are being received in convertible foreign exchange. It's a mandatory condition, as we have discussed previously, that only then it has been classified under the export of service definition. And once the money is received, only then refund application can be filed against the transaction. We need to file an online refund application in RFD01 along with the documentation. And those documentation are being verified and checked by the GST officer. Even if he needs any further details or clarification, definitely he will issue notice to you and get the clarification from you, and accordingly will process the refund into the bank account. In such cases, the timelines are maximum permissible time for a GST officer is of 60 days. Definitely beyond that also he can process, but there is a clause of interest which need to be paid to the taxpayer. So generally in such cases when the export of services are being made with payment of IGST, so इसमें क्या होता है कि जब taxpayer ने export of services कर दिया, उसको पैसा मिल गया, he then files a refund application. Already his GST are 3B and 1 are being filed. Then he files a refund application, and when he submits all the documentation, so this process takes around. Generally, officer also after verification process the refund application, but such kind of refunds are very sensitive for exports of services because it's an intangible. It's not easy for the officer and taxpayer also to justify. So with the basis of documentation, invoicing, FIRCs, foreign inward remittance certificate, which is a proof that money has been received in foreign convertible exchange. With all the proofs and documentation, also the service agreements which a taxpayer enter with the foreign vendors or foreign buyers. So all this documentation and any other further documentation required with the officer are been submitted and verified, and after that refunds are processed. And we'll move ahead. Now let's discuss exports without payment of taxes. Like previously we have discussed the process of exports with payment of IGST. Now we'll discuss refunds without payment of taxes. Now in such case, it has been the taxpayer has to first of all obtain letter of undertaking from GST, which is one of the very important condition been levied. Now LUT is been governed under Rule 96A, wherein it is an undertaking or a declaration been given by a taxpayer that he will comply with the GST rules and condition been levied and prescribed, and wherein exporter must export such goods within 3 months from the date of issue of invoices, or else, and he also had to ensure that money has been received within 1 year from the date of issue of invoice, and that too in convertible foreign exchange. Only in exceptional cases where RBI has permitted receipt in rupees also, or otherwise by default the money has to be received in foreign convertible exchange only. So invoice has to be prepared without payment of IGST. Specifically, the declaration or a line has to be mentioned on the invoice that supplies, zero-rated supplies made without payment of IGST under LUT, and also mention the LUT ka ARN number on the invoice. While export of goods, shipping bill has to be prepared, and we have to select the option without payment of tax under LUT, and the IGST amount on the shipping bill, on the face of the shipping bill on the first page, it will show as 0. GST returns has to be filed definitely, and data will again be matched and validated and transmitted to IGST. And definitely in such cases, exports made without payment of taxes, here we need to file a refund application. Unlike export of good with payment of IGST, wherein no separate refund application was required, as the GST returns filed was deemed to be the refund application. But here you need to file the refund application with all the documentation. We'll discuss the whole process of filing the refund application in detail ahead. And we'll file the refund application, submit all the documentation, attach the documentation at the filing of refund application, and also provide further documentation to the officer as and when required, as and when called for. And once the data are being transmitted, and then money has been transmitted to the bank account. Again, here there's a timeline of around 60 days been prescribed to the officer, wherein he has to process the refund application, dispose the refund application within the timeline of 60 days from the date of filing of application, else they have to process the refunds with the interest. We'll discuss it. Likewise, export of services. Now, in that case, again, LUT is must. We have discussed LUT in detail in the previous slide. Invoice has to be prepared without payment of tax. Very similar to what we have discussed. GST return has to be filed. Money has to be received in convertible foreign exchange. Again, the same condition over here. An online refund application has to be filed with the documentations. It will be checked, verified, and accordingly, refund will be granted by the tax officer. LUTs, again, definitely needless to mention, is very important and very sensitive document, and very critical document which is required for making zero-rated supplies, both SEZ as well as export, without payment of IGST for goods as well as services. In case any exporter has missed out to obtain the LUT and he has made the export of goods or let's say services without payment of IGST, in such cases, I would say it's a very difficult situation then to escape the tax and to obtain the benefit of not paying tax and claiming the refund. Because LUT is must, I will also show that while filing the refund application, we got to mention the LUT number as well. While filing the refund application, we have to mention the LUT ARN number as well. It is that important. So we cannot forget this option. So generally हम क्या करते हैं हमारे clients के लिए, we suggest them to get the LUT day one itself. Even though he's a regular exporter or a very less often exporter, we suggest them to get the LUT in the day one. Also, you can file the LUT even before the start of the financial year. And every LUT filed has a validity up till the end of the financial year. Let's say with the example, if I have obtained the LUT on 1st of April 2024. So this LUT has a validity and will expire on 31st March 2025, end of the financial year. Had it been I have taken this LUT on the 1st March 2025, again, it will expire on 31st March 2025 and I have to obtain a new LUT for the subsequent financial years. So now when we have discussed both the modes of exports with payment of tax or without payment of tax, now which is the best mode for a taxpayer, for exporter, LUT or with payment of IGST? In with payment of IGST mode, he has to make the payment of taxes and claim the refund of IGST. And in payment LUT, he don't have to make the payment of taxes, and whatever accumulated ITC is there, how is ITC get accumulated? Because whenever an exporter purchases or when he incurs any expenses, means on all the inward supplies, he has GST will be levied, because when a supplier supplies to a person who is going to export, in such leg of transaction, GST is applicable. So in such case, ITC might get accumulate when you don't pay tax on your outward export supplies. So in such cases, ITC get accumulated and same can be claimed as a refund. So which is the best mode? Now this has been a very difficult question and very important question as well for many exporter, that which is the best mode and which options he or she should opt for. Both has its own advantages, disadvantages, limitations, and conditions. So both are good at considering the nature of business, the volume of transactions, considering the product, GST rate, what is applicable, considering the volume and the GST rate of inward supplies. And there are many other factors through which we need to analyze which is the best mode of export for the particular client. Yes, in each year, in a whole year, there is no such limitation that once you have opted the LUT, now you cannot go for IGST mode, or once you have started with IGST, you cannot go for LUT mode. This is a myth. Many exporters comes up that, sir, हमने तो LUT ले लिया है, अब हम IGST में कैसे export करें? Yes, irrespective that you have obtained LUT you can definitely opt for IGST mode, or else if you're on a vice versa, if you're doing under IGST and if you want to switch to LUT, you can. Even in the same month, if the first transaction, let's say, if a given transaction has been exported with payment of IGST, the second transaction is allowed and permitted to be exported under LUT and vice versa. There is no such restriction. That's a beauty been designed in GST for this. That's completely on the taxpayer, how he manages his working capital and fund. And here it becomes very important for any taxpayer that which mode he should select for, because ITC get accumulated for a big exporter. ITC accumulation might become a huge and which might run up crores. So it's very important question for the exporter that which mode he should opt for. Again, just quickly brief it up. With payment of IGST, exporter has to make the payment of IGST, and this IGST will be paid through using his electronic credit ledger, ITC balance, and wherever required additional cash, if any. And once this IGST be paid, he get the refund of the said IGST which has been paid. On the second part, under LUT mode, without payment of taxes, when the exporter chooses this option, he don't have to charge or levy or pay any GST as he opted for this option, and he can claim the refund of accumulated ITC. Again, very important point I remember that one of the exporter who has come up who said कि सर हमने export under LUT किया है, ठीक है, अब हमको refund लेना है और हमको तो refund लेना ही पड़ेगा. That's what his line was, हमको तो refund लेना ही पड़ेगा. But in his case, it was strange. He was doing domestic supply also and export supplies also. So in his case, his domestic supply was much higher and export sale was very limited. So in his case, the ITC balance was zero. The ITC accumulated ITC balance was zero. The whole amount got utilized for the payment of IGST on maybe on the domestic sale or any other type of transaction. So in such cases, when the ITC balance is zero, there is no need to file the refund application. You won't get the refund. So that is why the important word is accumulated ITC. When the ITC get accumulated, only then refund will be eligible. We'll move ahead. So here, so when you have opt for IGST mode with payment of IGST for goods, the refunds get processed automatically, but for services, refund doesn't get automatically. You need to file a refund application. And when you opt for without payment of IGST under LUT mode, refund application has to be filed for both services as well as in goods. And for zero-rated supply includes two things: actual exports as well as SEZ sales. So for that, there is a very simple calculation and formula been given under Rule 89 sub rule 4, prescribing the calculation for claiming the refund. So here it simply says refund amount is equal to turnover of zero-rated supplies, simply means export sales, divided by adjusted total turnover. In very simple words, total turnover into multiplied by net ITC. So now let even each and every item in this calculation has been defined. We'll discuss that. Under Rule 89.4, net ITC simply means ITC of inputs and input services. Input tax credit has been bifurcated in three modes: inputs, which mean goods, input services, and capital goods. So here it only includes inputs and input services. It's categorically excludes and doesn't include, I'll say, ITC of capital goods. So while making the calculation of refund in case of zero-rated supplies without payment of tax under LUT, net ITC, when we take the ITC, we have to ensure that capital goods are not included in this calculation. You won't get refund in proportion to that capital goods. You can claim the ITC of capital goods. Definitely, there is no limitation or any restriction on claiming the ITC. Claiming the ITC is a different aspect. Claiming the refund is a different aspect. Both are governed under different section and different rules. So we'll read the further definition of exports of goods. Export of goods simply means value of goods exported or supplies to SEZ under LUT mode. Here a new condition was being introduced, that the value of zero rated supplies, means SEZ sales or export supplies, cannot exceed 1.5 times of like goods which have been supplied domestically. Simple meaning, we'll discuss with an example, that if I'm selling a product A and I'm doing both domestic sale as well as export sales. So if I'm selling a product A for, let's say, 1 lakh rupee, so the maximum value for the purpose of refund calculation of my export sales of the said A product, of the like product, cannot exceed 1.5 lakh rupees, cannot exceed 1,50,000. This is the maximum capping. And this restriction is for the purpose of calculation of refund, irrespective of my actual transaction value, which might be higher or lower. If it's lower, so definitely I'll take the lower one. If it's higher, I cannot go beyond 1.5 times of the value. So this is a very important condition we need to check for each transaction at the time of calculation of refunds. Now the second terms come, the refunds of turnover of zero rated supplies of services. Now here it is not simply, it doesn't simply mean like export of goods में बहुत simple हो जाता है कि कितना आपने इस month, particular month या tax period में आपने export किया है, but export of services में it's a bit different. Here it has been calculated in a way that payment received during the period, during the refund period maybe a single month, maybe multiple months, maybe multiple financial year also. So payment received in the particular refund period plus export services completed for which advance was received in the previous period, minus advance received but service is not completed. So here in this formula, they are ensuring that that service has to be completed, service has to be provided, invoicing has to be done, and money is also has to be received. Convertible foreign exchange has to be received. That's very important in leg of the definition of export of services. So that has been taken care in this formula as well at the time of filing the refund application. For an example, if I made 5 exports of service in a particular month and I have received the money for, let's say, 4 particular transaction, for one I haven't received it yet, so I cannot file the refund application for the 5th one for which I haven't received yet. I'll have to wait. Once I receive the convertible foreign exchange, only then I can file the refund application for that particular transaction. This is a very simple illustration which I have prepared for understanding the difference between the condition which was been introduced of 1.5 times. Okay. This condition was actually been introduced for a reason that many exporters were claiming undue advantage or refunds and with this particular export. So this particular type of condition has to be introduced by the tax authorities, that you cannot value your product more than 1.5 times for the purpose of refund calculation, irrespective of your actual transaction value. Similar conditions are also being prescribed in the customs for the time of claiming the drawback or other incentives to the exports of goods. So here is a very simple illustration wherein when a particular product has been sold locally as well, domestic as well as exported. So let's say the value per unit is, let's say, 200 rupee for exports of for local, and for exports the value is 350 rupees. So the turnover here will be calculated as 1000 rupees of domestic, and exports it become 1750. So the total turnover becomes 2750. Okay, but due to the condition being levied that the value of export transaction of the product cannot exceed the 1.5 times of the said similar goods sold locally. So in such cases, the maximum value for export of goods will get restricted and will be calculated in a way that 200 rupee multiplied by 1.5, which becomes into the quantity, which becomes 1500 rupees. So here's a difference. My transaction value says 1750. The transaction value, it says 1750, but as per the condition or the restriction, then it becomes 1500. 2,500. And accordingly, my total turnover, total adjusted turnover will become 2,500, unlike 2,750. So, and when we put this figures in the calculation of refund, let's say we have assumed that night ITC is 250 rupees, 270 rupees. So in such case, if as per the old formula, the maximum refund amounts calculated at 172 rupees, wherein we have taken 1750 as zero-rated supplies divided by total adjusted turnover 2750 multiplied by the ITC amount 270 rupees. So refund amount calculated becomes 172 rupees. On the contrary, as per the new formula, which is mandatory, so now our formula or the figures get changed. It becomes 1,500 divided by 2,500 rupees. Here we have calculated the turnover multiplied by 270 ITC. Now the ITC, the refund comes to 162. The refund get reduced. Yes, this was the purpose, that government don't wants to give any undue advantage or unfair trade practices. They want to stop all that. Now we'll move to the next category of refund, wherein wrong payment of taxes. Section 77 is governed under this of the CGST Act, and there's another counterpart, Section 19 of the IGST Act. So when such kind of situation arises, I'll give you a very simple example of this, and this is a very straightforward example for this. When a taxpayer believes a transaction to be a interstate transaction, and for interstate transaction, IGST being levied, and he pays the IGST, and later on when he comes to know that this was supposed to be a intrastate transaction, CGST and SGST was supposed to be paid. So in such cases, he can claim the refunds. What he has to do, simply make the payment correct taxes. जैसे हम reconciliation करते हैं कोई चीज का, so सही चीज भरनी है, जो wrong हो गया उसका आप refund claim कर लीजिए. So in such case, he will have to pay CGST and SGST and claim the refund of IGST. Here's a very interesting point now, that when he pays the CGST and SGST, he don't have to pay any interest on such transaction. He don't have to pay any interest. And on the contrary, vice versa, when he has paid CGST and SGST, believing it to be an intrastate transaction, and later on discovers that it was an interstate transaction, he has to pay the correct tax and claim the refund of CGST and SGST. And again, he don't have to pay any interest while making the payment of IGST. We'll move ahead to the next next category of refunds. So here, when a casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person has deposited advance at the time of registration, every casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person, when he obtains a GST registration, he has to deposit mandatorily GST in advance by giving estimated amount of his taxable sales, and he has to make the advance tax payment. Only then GST registration is granted. Okay, and after that, once he files his GST returns 1 3B, and he utilizes those amount for the payment of his outward supplies, and after that, if any balance amount is left out in the electronic cash ledger, or let's say ITC ledger, cash ledger, he can definitely claim the refunds of that, and that will happen only at the expiry or at the end of the registration which has been obtained, or at the time when he surrenders the GST number. Casual taxable person is a very interesting kind of category a facility being introduced in GST, where a taxpayer who is registered in one particular state and who may not be registered in, let's say, other state. Let's say a person is registered in Maharashtra and he goes out in other states to provide some services or good at other states where he may not have his office or maybe particular godown or factory or shop. So in such case, and he wants to provide service over there, so he can obtain a casual registration. Casual itself means it's a temporary. The validity does not exceed 90 days, And definitely when the GST officer verifies this application, all the details has to be provided why this kind of registration has been obtained. Such registration have been obtained, let's say example, when there is some event management or event being organized. Let's say a person is registered in Maharashtra and there is some event in, let's say, Gujarat or Goa or Rajasthan or any other place, and he can obtain a registration in that particular premises for a temporary period by getting all the documentation or proof that he is entering such kind of transactions. Let's say if you're holding an event in a particular hotel or particular ground or premises, you have to obtain the documentation or the agreements and a letter from the premises also, that what is the period or the for which this event or all transactions will be taken care. And once he filed all the refund returns, only then his number get only then he can apply for cancellation and for the refund application. Yes, when as I mentioned that casual taxable person, the validity is 90 days. This can be extended further, but not more than 90 days, further 90 days by special permission, wherein he has to justify why he or she needs some more time, why the registration should be extended. So in total, the casual taxable person cannot have a validity of his registration certificate beyond 90 plus 90, 180 days. It cannot be more than that. Then it get cancelled, and the registration certificate being issued comes with a validity date. Like a regular certificate which we see doesn't come with a validity. It has just date of issue. The end date is not mentioned, but for such kind of taxpayer, end date is also been mentioned over there. We'll move ahead now. Merchant exporter. Yes, now another very interesting topic, merchant exporter. We all know, okay, exports, India always try to promote exports by some of the incentives or making by some ease of doing business or everything, because these kind of merchant exporter facilitates export transactions and definitely helps to get the convertible foreign exchange in India. So a special provision has been brought in under GST for such merchant exporter. Okay, a very simple example. I'll just discuss this thing with this. So जब एक merchant exporter है, merchant exporter, I'll say, मैं बहुत loose word में कह सकता हूँ, he's a global trader. He's just a trader. He just buy and sell. He don't much add much value to the particular product. He just buy and sell it. So he can buy at the full GST rate. What the product rate is, let's say 5%, 18%, 28%. He has to buy from a particular vendor in India, then he can sell. But in such transaction, when he pays so much of duty, so much of taxes, and then claim the refund of that, his working capital will get blocked, and the whole concept of merchant exporter, the whole industry will get impacted on a great extent. So a special provision has been brought in for merchant exporter and such kind of transactions, wherein a merchant exporter can procure goods at a very discounted GST rate of 0.1%. At a discounted rate of 0.1%. Definitely, this has been proved very, very useful and given boost to this industry. So now, instead of paying the whole tax of 5%, 12, 18, 28%, he just have to simply pay 0.1% GST on his purchases, and he has to make the exports. And now, mandatorily, this has to be exported under LUT without payment of tax. He cannot opt for with payment of IGST. Frankly, अगर कोई एक्सपोर्टर 0.1 में खरीद रहा है, so वो with payment of IGST में जाएगा ही नहीं, preferably, because अगर उसका ITC इतना कम है, अगर वो सेल्स पे भी GST भरेगा, तो he end up paying taxes from his bank account through electronic cash ledger. So ultimately, the purpose will get defeat. वो transaction भी viable ना भी रहे. So the agenda was what got the agenda of this notification. There's special notification introduced, notification number 40, 2017, central tax rate, which prescribed the whole procedure and the conditions to be strictly followed by a merchant exporter and also by such domestic supplier. that need to be followed strictly. So this notification, I just highlight few important points from this notification, that exporter can claim this benefit of procuring at 0.1% of GST, and he has to mandatorily exports under LUT, and he has to mention the details, invoice details of the domestic supplier on his shipping bill and on his bill of lading at the time of exports, and he has to give a purchase order, and all this export documentation has to be submitted to the GST jurisdictional officer of the supplier. So in this illustration, what we are discussing, so when the merchant exporter gives the order to the manufacturer, or let's say to a supplier, that he wants to obtain at 0.1%, he has to issue a proper purchase order mentioning all these details, that he's intended to buy at 0.1%, this particular purchase order, and his actual export documentation, which specifically has a separate column where the invoice details of the such supplier has been mentioned. All this documentation has to be handed over by the merchant exporter to the manufacturer, so such supplier, and such supplier has to submit to his jurisdictional officer. This is a very mandatory condition. So, and in such case, now two type of refunds come in between here, because there are two legs of transactions. First, that sale between a domestic supplier to the merchant exporter, both residing in India, and merchant exporters exporting goods to the foreign buyer. So there are two transactions. So two type of refunds come in between over here. So the supplier or the manufacturer can claim the refund of accumulated ITC under inverted duty structure. Simpler, because when such supplier has procured, when the such domestic supplier has procured goods or services, he had to pay full GST, applicable GST 18, 15, 18, 28% or 12%. He has to pay full GST. He cannot claim or procure at 0.1%. Only merchant exporter can buy. Okay. So in such transactions, inverted duty structure get arise, wherein the GST rate on the inward supplies is higher than the GST rate on the outward supplies. Inward supplies may be taxed at 12, 5, 18, 28, and the outward supplies charge at mere 0.1%. So this is an inverted duty structure. So here a refund arises. The supplier, domestic supplier, can claim the refunds under the head inverted duty structure, which is governed under section 54, subsection 3, clause 2. And the merchant exporter, even he can claim the refunds. What refund he will claim? He will claim the refund of all the inward supplies which he incurs for export. Now, only the primary goods which he procures, he can procure at 0.1%. I repeat, only the primary goods which he procures can be procured at 0.1%. All the supporting inward supplies, maybe other overheads or any other expenses, will be charged at original GST rates, 5%, 12, 18, 28, whatever the applicable rate is. Like example, when he exports product A, when he purchases product A from a supplier, he pays only 0.1% GST. But all the other overheads like packing material, let's say clearing forwarding agents fees, let's say rentals, or any other expenses or inward supplies he incurs for his business, will be charged at complete GST rate, full GST rate. No such special benefit or a duty exemption is available. So only his primary product will be levied at 0.1%. All the other items, all the other inward supplies will be taxed at full applicable rates. So now all such accumulated ITC, now here comes the refund. He can claim the refund of such ITC. So in such case, he has to claim the refund under the category of any other head. I repeat, in such case, merchant exporter can claim the refund of accumulated ITC under the head any other head and not under exports. This has been categorically mentioned and clarified under Circular 94 2019. I repeat, such refund application of merchant exporter of the accumulated ITC has to be claimed under any other head. Yeah. So इससे एक बात मुझे याद आती है. In one of my case wherein when a merchant exporter has made exports and he procured at 0.1%, and we had filed the refund application for them, and we had filed under any other head as per the circular being prescribed. Initial days, many officers or tax authorities were not much aware about the procedures and such transaction, because not all officers come against each kind of transaction which has been covered and governed under GST. So such transaction has come up to him. So when we had filed the application and he saw it has been filed under any other application, and when we had submitted all the documentation, he got question mark and he asked, sir, ये तो exports है, तो आपने wrong head में file कर दिया है, आपको तो zero rated supplies without payment of IGST head में डालना चाहिए था. Then I explained him with the help of the circular being prescribed that this has to be categorically filed under the any other head only, and all the documentation were being provided to them. And also while filing such refund application on any other head for the merchant exporter, or for that matter when you file any refund application under head any other head, the amount will not get debited from the electronic credit ledger at the time of refund application. Generally, at the time of filing the refund application, once the refund application is filed, the amounts get debited from the electronic credit ledger. But in such cases, it doesn't get debited. Once the officer verifies the details, once he makes all the calculations, then we just discuss with them what is the amount, as we definitely mentioned the amount of refund which we are claiming. Even he makes the calculation from his end, considering the ITC eligibility and the formula and the calculation. And once he confirms the amount, then we have to file a DRC03. Yes, we have to file a DRC03, specifically mentioning it that we are for the purpose of refund. And once this DRC03 has been filed, only after that, GST officer will process your refund, and then you get the money to your bank account. And on the previous leg of the transaction, where a domestic supplier has made a sale to the merchant exporter, so and he can claim the refund of accumulated ITC. Again, when he has purchased the raw materials or the product from his suppliers, from the vendors, they had charged him the full GST rate. So in such case, ITC get accumulated. So he can definitely claim the refunds of accumulated ITC under the head inverted duty structure. And mind well, while claiming the refund application for such kind of transaction for such domestic supplier, please ensure that all the documentation, export documentations from the merchant exporter have been duly collected and submitted. Also the purchase order and everything are duly submitted to the GST officer on time, and only after that file the refund application. Otherwise, this will again become a challenge or a hindrance for the smooth flow of refund. In one of few cases where the exporter, whether such a domestic supplier, has filed the refund application and he didn't even bother to collect all the documentations or any such documentation from the merchant exporter, and later on when the GST department officer, when he verified the refund application filed by the domestic supplier, they had to face a lot of issue that documentation were not available, and in the last hour they had to run to all such transactions. They had to connect to the catch hold and connect to those persons to provide the shipping bills, bill of lading, purchase order, and all those export documentation. And in few of the documentation, by mistake, the merchant exporter didn't even update the invoice details of such domestic purchases, which was again a challenge for claiming the refund for the domestic supplier. So this was a very when government for any tax law, when government gives any exemption, benefit, or ease, that comes with terms and conditions that has to be adhered strictly. So as I mentioned, there is a particular notification being notified, notification number 40, 2017 Central Tax Rate, which lays down the conditions to be followed strictly for entering such kind of transactions. I'll just highlight few points wherein a merchant exporter has to issue a purchase order by mentioning that he intends to buy at 0.1%. Merchant exporter has to export under LUT only, cannot go for with payment of IGST, and he has to mention the purchase details of the suppliers and he has to hand over all those documentation to the manufacturer. He has to ensure the manufacturer, the supplier, domestic vendor, and the merchant exporter has to ensure that all the goods which he procures and which he intends to export should be directly moved from the place of supplier to the customs location. I repeat, the goods has to be moved directly from the place of supplier to the customs location. The goods cannot be supplied to the place of merchant exporter. It has to be supplied directly to the customs location only, because all the supporting documentation, your invoice, e-invoice, your e-way bill, all will show all this documentation where from where the goods are being moved. And if the merchant exporter intends to collect multiple inward supplies and export it in a collective way, then he has to enter all those goods in a customs warehouses. He cannot have it its own place. He has to get all the goods delivered at the customs warehouse, where then he can collect all the goods and then he can export it. These are the main conditions being prescribed under this notification number 40. We'll move ahead. Yes, inverted duty structure. हमने कई बार ये वर्ड सुन लिया था, inverted duty structure. हमने partially previous slide में भी डिस्कस कर लिया था कि what is inverted duty structure. Simply जैसे हमने इस फोटो में elaborate करने की कोशिश की है, that your purchases or inward supplies are at applicable GST rate 12, 18, 28%, and your finished product or your sale product is levied at a lower rate, let's say 5% or maybe 12%. So here there is a situation which arises of inverted duty structure. So here's again there is a calculation being prescribed that how we can calculate the eligible refunds of accumulated ITC. Here the ITC will get accumulated definitely, because when you purchase at a higher GST rate and sell at a lower GST rate, the ITC will naturally get accumulated. Such kind of transaction, or I'll say industry, for such kind of transaction, you can say textile industry, footwear industry, pharmaceutical industry. You'll find such kind of transaction where the applicable rate on inward supply is higher of the raw materials and the finished product are being levied at 5% or let's say 12%. With the example of, let's say, garments, when a manufacturer procures the yarn, fabric, all the other raw materials and other inward supplies, the services, he procures at applicable GST rate, let's say 12, 18, 28%. And when he prepare the finished product in garment, the GST rate is 5% when the value of that garment is sold at below 1,000, and the value exceeds 1,000 rupees, the applicable GST rate is 12%. So in such cases, inverted duty structure comes up. Excuse me. So here's a calculation being prescribed in the rule 89 sub rule 5. Yeah, it looks complex, but when you just read it and when you just actually sit and try, it's very simple formula. Again, turnover of inverted duty supplies, मतलब जो ऐसा सेल जो हमने लोअर रेट पे सेल किया है, डिवाइड बाय एडजस्टेड टोटल टर्नओवर, सिंपली मींस टोटल टर्नओवर, मल्टीप्लाई बाय नेट आईटीसी ऑफ इनपुट्स ओनली. Yes, I mean it, inputs only. Here, very interesting and important point to be considered is inputs only. You cannot multiply, you cannot net ITC over here means only inputs. Previously, when we had discussed for zero rated supplies, export sales or SEZ sales, under LUT, there we took net ITC means inputs, ITC of inputs as well as input services, but over here it only includes inputs only, goods only. It doesn't include services and doesn't even include capital goods again. So, and minus tax paid on inverted duty supply. Let's say my inverted duty sale, it's let's say 1 lakh rupee and applicable GST rate is 5%. So my 1 lakh rupee will be mentioned in the numerator divided by total turnover. Let's say 2 lakh rupee multiplied by ITC minus the GST taxes payable on inverted rate supply. Let's say 1 lakh ka 5% GST, that comes to 5,000 rupees. Multiply by net ITC of inputs only again, divided by ITC of inputs and input services. Sounds complex, but when you sit and just jot down all the figures, it becomes very simple, very calculative. There's no problem with that. So this ये formula में extension add किया गया था recently, that there were many cases and cases going on that और industry ने भी काफी इस चीज पे raise किया था that we are not getting the refunds to the extent of input services, and input services also being a very important element in the preparing of final product or for the purpose of outward supplies, for making the output supplies. So, but still they couldn't include that amount in the main calculation, but they have included that in an extension of the calculation, wherein GST what we paid on inverted duty supply, to that proportion they have allowed inputs and input services with this formula, with this extended formula. So in such cases, you get the refund of accumulated ITC. This is a really wonderful concept being thought and being put into place, that exporter, not just exporter, even the domestic supplier who make a domestic purchase and a domestic sale can also claim the refund under this category. We'll move ahead. And this is governed by Rule 89, Sub Rule 5 of the CGST rules. So here's another category, deemed exports. Deemed exports simply means that when goods are being procured or supplied to an EOU or STP or BTP, so in such cases, it is a deemed exports. Deemed exports has been categorically defined and notified in the notification number 48/2017. Deemed exports लोग कई बार इस चीज को बहुत loosely use कर लेते हैं. They consider that when a supplier, domestic supplier supplies to an exporter, कई बार लोग उसको भी deemed exports बोल देते हैं, considering their understanding to the previous laws, but that is not the case. I have even heard many people say that when a domestic supplier supplies at 0.1%, they loosely term it as deemed export, but that is not the case. That is again a domestic supply only, which is charged at 0.1%. Deemed export has been categorically defined and notified under notification number 48. In such transactions, I'll just brief you that इसमें किस वे में taxes भरना है और कैसे refunds मिलेगा. So in such cases, when a domestic supplier make a supplies to an EOU or STP or BTP, he has to pay GST on that. He has to pay GST. I repeat, he has to pay GST on that, and he can claim the refund of that. And because ultimately these EOU and BTPs, STPs gonna make the export sales, so government has introduced this kind of benefits to such transactions. So in such cases, GST has to be levied first. He has to pay GST. He don't have to collect GST, and he can claim the refunds of GST which isn't paid. And for such cases, definitely documentation wise, all the declarations has to be taken from the EOU that they haven't been charged any GST, they haven't haven't paid any GST to the supplier. All those declarations has to be obtained by the domestic supplier, which will be definitely useful and verified by the GST officer at the time of processing the refunds. As we have discussed for export sales, likewise in deemed exports, there is no such option to exports under LUT. GST has to be paid to the government, but you don't have to charge GST when to the EOU. It has to be paid from the own pocket using your ITC amount, or if required, additional cash balance amount also. and you can claim the refund of that GST paid. No such option available to exports under LUT for such kind of transactions. We'll move ahead. Just a moment. Now we'll discuss flow and process of refund application. Right now, we have previously discussed the types of refund application, the types and category eligibility, the meaning of refunds, and the section which, or the act or the section or the rule or the notification which governs and clarifies the refund process. Now we'll discuss the actual flow and process of refund. It's okay. So in cases where online refund application in RFD1 has to be filed, so refund has been filed under the form name RFD01, and in initial days when the system was not ready, initial days when GST was levied, जैसे हमने देखा था कि GSTR 1, 2 and 3 was supposed to be there, the idle returns, but those cannot be could not be implemented, and they had to bought in only GSTR 1 and they had to introduce GSTR 3B as a returns. So likewise, even the RFD system online process was not in place. They had a system of RFD01A, which was a manual refund application, because refund has to be processed even though online system is there or not. The show must go on. So they had an option of RFD01A, which was a complete manual process. The calculation, everything, the procedure was same, but it was not online, it was offline, which was soon that the module was developed, and then it completely got live on online. So now today, refunds can be filed only online. No refunds can be filed offline. I repeat, no refund can be filed offline. So once GST, you need to fill up the form RFD01 with all the details, calculation, documentation. After that, ARN number is generated. ARN number, as we know, when we regularly file GSTR 1 or 3B, for every such transaction, ARN number is generated. For again refund also, ARN is generated. Once the refund application is filed, this refund application gets transmitted to the jurisdictional GST officer. He apparently verified the completeness of the documentation and the refund application filed. Apparently, he just verified the completeness. If he is satisfied that it is completed, it's fine. If he is not satisfied with the completeness of the refund application filed, he will issue a deficiency memo. Deficiency memo simply means that this refund application where there are some deficiency which need to be addressed and corrected, and after that a fresh application has to be again filed by the taxpayer. Once he is satisfied on a counterpart, if he is satisfied with the documentation and the refund application with the apparent limited checking, he will issue an acknowledgement in RFD02. Now RFD02 is an acknowledgement being issued wherein it says that GST officer, GST department has accepted the refund application. Here only a refund application is accepted. That doesn't mean your refund is confirmed. No, it's not confirmed here. Only the application is accepted. Where in the stage where the officer has verified the documents, he only have a very limited check of the documentation and ensure the completeness of the refund application. He don't check the documentation in detail. He can ask for further details and clarification on a later stage as well. We'll discuss in the further flow. And if he needs any further clarification, as I told, अगर उसको कोई further clarification या documentation या details चाहिए, he will issue an show cause notice in RFD08, wherein he will call for some further details, clarification where he is not satisfied with the details, or maybe if he wants to reject certain part of, or completely if he wants to reject the refunds, definitely a show cause notice has to be issued, because following the principle of natural justice, any taxpayer has to be given opportunity to present his case. So RFD08, it's a form which has to be issued by the GST officer if he wants any further clarification or details, or if he wants to reject completely or partially the refund application claim. That has to be replied in form RFD09. So once a taxpayer gets the RFD08, he has to ensure that he has to reply that show cause notice within the 15 days time through RFD09. This is a complete online process. Whole thing can be visible in the system that RFD8 has been issued. There's a button available to file a reply. We'll see all the process of filing the refund application, how it looks, how it appears on online and the GST portal in the tomorrow's session. So we'll discuss ahead right now. So in RFD09, he has to file the reply within the 15 days. If given if the taxpayer is not able to file the reply within the 15 days, not able to provide documentation in 15 days, he can ask for extension of time, and after that he has to file the reply. And once after obtaining those replies, once the officer is verifying all those details, documentation, he will make the calculation from his end, and after that he will issue order. Order will be issued in RFD06. Order includes both, where he is confirming the refund, he is rejecting the refunds, or he is rejecting the partial or the complete one. So in that case, he has to, in such situation, he will issue a order in RFD06, and he will also issue RFD05, which is a payment order. And he will, if he has confirmed the grant of refund, when he calculates or after verification of documentation, if he feels he's satisfied with the documentation and whole refund application, he will grant the refund. Then money will get credited into the bank account. Had it been he's not satisfied with the application or the details, he may reject the application completely or partially. So in such cases, the money will get credited into your electronic credit ledger again. Or if you're satisfied with the rejection, you can accept the recredit into the electronic credit ledger by filing PMT03, by filing the declaration in PMT03. And if you're not satisfied with that, definitely you can file an appeal. You can file an appeal against the refund order to the appellant authority, and again it's an online process by submitting all the documentation and everything, and accordingly then those details will be taken care by the appellant authority. So this is a flow of refund right from refund application up till the money to the bank account. Important points to be considered at the time of filing the refund application is, we need to ensure that our refund application, before filing the refund application, all the GST returns are being duly filed. GSTR1, GSTR3V, everything is duly filed. And a very simple tip, always make a calculation, proper detailed calculation with all the documentation and as per the prescribed rules. And once you're ready with your documentation, only after that you start filing your online refund application form. Filing the form is a very easy job, but finding the correct and the right refund application form with the correct details and accurate calculation is something very vital which need to be taken care. And once the refund application is filed online, ARN number is generated with the apparent review of the refund application by looking at the completeness of the documentation, the refund application file. Officer is satisfied or not satisfied. If he is not satisfied, he will issue deficiency memo, and with the deficiency memo, the taxpayer has to make the deficiency good and again file the flesh application. If he was satisfied, the officer was satisfied, he will issue a RFD02. And if he needs further details, he will issue RFD08, which need to be filed reply in RFD9. If he doesn't need any further clarification or details, he can issue order in RFD06 and payment order under 05. And accordingly, money will be credited into the bank account and so forth. So this was a very simple and illustrative flow of refund application. This whole process, as we have discussed, that has to be processed by the GST officer. GST officer has to dispose such refund application case within the time of 60 days from the date of filing the refund application. Else he has to pay interest. Very interesting point on interest, that interest rate is only 6%. That too, the interest will start from the date of expiry of 60 days. I repeat, for let's say if we have filed the refund application today, and at the expiry of 60 days he haven't processed the refunds, and on the 70th day he has processed the refund, granted the refund, so we will not get the interest on the whole 70 days. You only get the interest up to the only for those differential 10 days period beyond 60 days, because 60 days was allowed to them. And there are some other conditions also for purpose of interest, because department is very strict for the purpose of granting then disposing the refund cases within the time of 60 days. When we discuss with the officer, they have been given generally a timeline or strict guidelines and timeline to dispose the refund within the time of 40 to 45 days within that. And once you are regularly filing the refund application for a particular client, even the officer get comfortable even you get comfortable with the documentation part and everything. So refund, definitely the timelines gets better with the learning curve, as we have as we know, with when the relationship also get developed, and even when you start filing the refund application regularly, the timelines get reduced automatically. The officer gets very comfortable with the details, and even you are very thorough by submitting the details and documentation for that. We'll discuss each and every point for the steps or the process that we have discussed briefly in a flowchart form. We'll discuss each and every point with the help of a screenshot by tomorrow in the tomorrow session. So I have listed out few frequently asked questions. I majorly deal with exporters, so there are many questions being coming up day in day out. For that, there are many misconceptions also about exports and refunds. So I've listed out few FAQs which we'll discuss now, and after that we can also take some queries or questions if members have to discuss upon. So one of the first question: how can I claim refunds of IGST paid on exports of goods? For exports of goods with payment of IGST, it get automatically credited, and there is no need to file a separate refund application. Second, in which bank account will the refund get credited? Refund will be credited only in those registered and validated bank account on the GST portal, and for IGST will be credited on the bank account which is registered and validated at the customs department. Will I get the automatic refund of IGST on supplies to SEZ with payment of IGST? No, automatic refund application automatically refund nahi milega. You have to file a refund application for supplies to SEZ with payment of IGST. For that matter, with or without payment of taxes for SEZ, you have to file a refund application. We'll move ahead. Next question, Kevin said, can I get refund related to capital goods while claiming refunds of ITC on exports under LUT or supplies to SEZ? No. Definition specifically mentions only for inputs and input services. It doesn't allow or includes ITC related to capital goods. Can I file manual refund application in today's time? No. Can I file refund by check or pay order? No. Refund will be granted directly into your bank account, which has been updated, registered and validated on your GST portal. Only through that mode, GST officer are not allowed to issue any pay order or check for your refunds. Next, can GST officer do physical verification of premises before granting refund? Yes. GST officer these days are doing verification of premises before granting the refund application. There are many cases we have came across that when exporter has claimed the refund for the first time, then GST officer comes up to his premises for verification to check the genuineness or that exporter is available in his place, and only after that, but field verification has been done. That has to be only after that they process the refund, and this is not every time. This is only done once. They don't do it frequently, or they don't do it for every refund application. They do it only once. After that, this things doesn't come up. Is there any timeline? Is there any time limit for claiming refund? Yes, there's a time limit of 2 years within which the refund application has to be filed, the refund has to be claimed, or else it will become time barred. You won't be able to claim refund of that. This just reminds me of there was a very interesting notification being issued to give respect to all those businesses which got affected, or during the time of COVID, there was notification of 13 2022, which excluded the time limit from the time limit between the particular period for the purpose of calculation of 2 years. So in that notification, they give a benefit to claim the refund even after 2 years by ensuring that for the purpose of calculation of 2 year limit, you need to exclude the period from March 2020 till Feb 2022. The notification was been brought in after the 47th council meeting. Notification was brought in to exclude those period. So while calculating 2 years, this period has to be excluded, and after that also refund could have been filed. Although this whole thing has been completed, the timelines has got completed. So as of today, the refund has to be filed within that period of 2 years only. During, I remember, in the month of Jan, Feb or March 2024, that was the time periods where this special notification which was being bought, which allowed the extension of time limit of 2 years, many exporters or many taxpayers took the benefit of that, and we also had filed for a refund application for clients for three years in a row with the help of this special notification. But now time has gone, that has been completed now. So now as on today, only 2 years time limit is there that need to be taken care. So moving to next question, can I get pending refunds on exports with payment of IGST beyond 2 years? In the previous question we have discussed that 2 years का time limit होता है. So now question comes is कि IGST payment जो हमने किया है export of goods में, क्या हम 2 साल के बाद भी उसका refund claim कर सकते हैं या मिल सकते हैं? So now the question will come that where such kind of transaction there is a facility of automatic refund granting. ठीक है, उसके लिए कोई सेपरेट रिफंड एप्लीकेशन फाइल नहीं करना पड़ता है. अभी आप ही मुझे कहोगे सचिन भाई आपने तो अभी बताया था देयर इज नो नीड टू फाइल रिफंड एप्लीकेशन, तो यहाँ 2 साल की बात ही किधर आ रही है? So I would like to highlight the issue that many exporter faces, that there are many cases where the automatic refund is not granted. This may be for many reasons. Can be from the mistake from the GST filing, can be from GST issues, maybe from customs department or customs filing or EGM filing. There can be n number of reasons wherein the exporter has not received the refund of IGST of exports automatically. Then in such cases also, even when the 2 years is lapsed, even then he will get the refund. Such kind of refund doesn't get lapsed. I remember even today we are helping the clients to get the refunds of 17, 18, 18, 19 for such transaction where IGST was paid on exports but they haven't received it. There could be multiple reasons behind that. So even today we are helping to get the old refund also. So yes, even after 2 years you will definitely get refund of IGST paid on exports of goods with payment of IGST. So this is very brief we could discuss today. So is there any questions which our members have, and so we can take up those questions, and for the further points we'll definitely discuss tomorrow for our tomorrow's menu. I'll say we have very interesting topics to discuss tomorrow. We'll have a detailed procedure or step by step with us with how it appears on portal, how to file the refund application, right from starting to file the refund application up till how we can track that refund application or filing of reply to notices and how notice also comes up, and all the documentation which are required for filing the refund application. We'll discuss also tomorrow. We'll discuss one very interesting topic: risky exporter, alert of risky exporter on the IEC import export code, which has been invoked by DGARM. We'll discuss upon that. We'll discuss upon common mistakes made by the taxpayer for due to which the refunds get affected, refund get rejected, and how we can ensure what are the best practices we need to follow, we can follow to get the maximum refund and get the smooth flow of refunds. So we'll discuss all those things in tomorrow's session. And also I've listed some few frequently asked questions that all we can also discuss tomorrow. So that's it from my side for today. I hope I could do justice on this topic today, and even our members could get some insight on this topic. So Virag bhai, over to you, and we can see if there is some questions or any queries our participants or our members have. We can discuss upon those.
Yes, thank you, Sachin bhai. We have a few questions in the question tab, so if you can check that.
Virag bhai, मेरे को नहीं दिख रहा है properly. I can't see the questions properly. वो छोटा हो गया option बहुत ही.
So that square box is there. No? From that you can adjust that.
Square box.
Undock pen from control panel. Expand हुआ sir?
नहीं हो रहा है. Facing some challenge. Can you help me out to read the questions? Then we can answer.
Yeah. So first question is from Srikanji. In case of export of good or services with IGST option, whether IGST liability needs to be set off against current ITC of that relevant period only, or there is no such restriction? I mean, can the IGST liability be paid from opening balance of ITC?
Okay, very interesting question. For export of goods or services with payment of IGST, you can definitely utilize your ITC balance, which is available in your electronic credit ledger, which includes both your opening balance as well as your ITC, which you are claiming in the current period at the time of filing your GST R3B. And your ITC, which you claim it once, has no expiry. So you can use your old ITC as well as your current ITC, because once you file your 3B, there is no such differentiation.
Yes, thank you. Next question is how to file GST refund in rate different case. I mean GST refund. How to file GST refund in rate different case.
Rate difference cases वही हो गया inverted duty structure we have discussed, wherein the rate of inward supplies is higher than the outward supplies. Example again, let's say if I procure at 12, 18, 28% and I sell it at 5%, you can claim the refunds of accumulated ITC. And we have discussed the procedure also inverted duty structure में. Particular formula भी given है, or there's a refund form we need to fill up, and you can get the refund of that. Next question.
Thank you. Next question from Chetan Ji. How to claim multiple refund of one single month? Means GSTR1 involved dim export says export and 0.1% sales.
Okay, fantastic.
So in that, how to calculate refund amount?
Interesting question. So in such case, where a taxpayer is doing all type of transactions under which have been prescribed or given in GST, so in that case, taxpayer has to file the separate refund application under the different category of it. As we have discussed, that there are separate category of refunds. So each kind of transaction has to be checked and filed under the respective category only. And there is a separate refund application for, let's say, deemed export, separate for export with payment of without payment of IGST, and separately for inverted duty, and so on. Even for the same particular month. And also to add to that, for one particular type of refund application, let's say exports without payment of taxes, you can file only once. Refund application can be filed only once for a particular month under a one category. So answering to your question again, you have to file the refund application for a particular period in the different respective categories. Yes.
Yes, thanks. The next question is, if invoice number was mismatched with the shipping bill and filed GSTR1, also option of amendment in GSTR1 also expire. How to get refund in this situation?
Interesting. ये बहुत ही ज़्यादा common issues आते हैं exporters के case में, where there is a mistake in invoice number, invoice date, shipping bill number, shipping bill date, port code, or maybe amounts mismatch. And जब वो in all such cases, documentations has to be filed in detail to the customs department. Customs department verifies and then process the refund of such cases. Yes, so refund definitely उनको मिलेगा when he has definitely paid the GST, IGST on such export of goods, and when there is a mistake in GST return filing. This is a very common problem, but yet this was a very big issue which got highlighted, and then a customs को आपको contact करना होगा, and then you can get the refunds. We have helped n number of exporters majorly for such kind of problems. So ये बहुत common problem है. You can get the refunds.
Next question is there any time limit to get response for a ticket raise on IGST portal?
अच्छा, आइसगेट पोर्टल पे अगर आपने को टिकट रेस किया उस पर कोई स्पेसिफिक टाइमलाइन नहीं है टू गेट द रिस्पॉन्स. जनरली हमने काफी क्लाइंट्स के लिए जब टिकट रेस करते हैं आइसगेट के ऊपर, सो दे जनरली गिव अ रिस्पॉन्स. एक स्टैंडर्ड टिकट नंबर तो 2 या 3 दिन के अंदर मिल ही जाता है, एंड दे डू रिस्पॉन्ड विद इन 3 to 4 days. देयर इज नो स्पेसिफिक टाइमलाइन बीन प्रिस्क्राइब कि उनको विद इन दैट उनको रिप्लाई करना है. अगर वो उनका रिप्लाई नहीं आता है तो व्हाट वी डू इज, मैं आपको एक टिप देता हूँ, हम जो करते हैं टू गेट द रिप्लाईज फ्रॉम देम, हम उनको फॉलोअप ईमेल भेज देते हैं. ऑल्सो यू कैन ऐड अनदर ईमेल आईडी टू दैट, shiftmanager@icegate.gov.in. That's also an email ID for their seniors, which you can add up in your mail and just try to follow up with them. As such, there is no such timeline for them to reply.
Right. Next question is, when was the new formula for calculating refund amount introduced?
The new formula for inverted duty, I mean, right? I understand this question is regarding inverted duty structure, because वहीं पर वो थोड़ा दो चीज होती है, एक तो उसमें है और हमारा रेगुलर एक्सपोर्ट्स का भी जो कैलकुलेशन है उसके अंदर भी है. So just a moment. This was introduced in 2020, 23 March 2020, for 1.5 times वाला रूल जो है वो इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था. एंड फॉर inverted duty, the extension part was being introduced again in 2022. It was in July 2022. Yeah.
Sachin, there are few more questions.
Sure.
So if you can expand, that will be better.
Okay.
Rather than I read.
Okay.
You can reply faster. So just let me guide you if you are not able to. The question tab you can see on the control panel.
मुझे क्वेश्चन टैब दिख रहा है, उसमें छोटा सा उस पे हो जाता है और क्वेश्चन.
So let me guide you. Question tab is there. In that the same line there is a square box.
Square box.
Just before X. जो ड्रॉप डाउन है ना वहां नहीं जाना है, स्क्वायर जो क्वेश्चन लिखा है उसी लाइन में.
मैंने उसको ना भी एक्सपांड कर दिया है.
हो गया ना, डन.
एक्सपांड कर दिया है, अब मुझे क्वेश्चंस वगैरह भी दिख रहे हैं.
So I have taken few of the questions. Now we are at I think question number 752 पे आए हैं. 7:52 PM is the last question what we have answered as of now.
Okay, now let me figure out within timeline or okay, हमने ये डिस्कस कर लिया है, हमने ये भी डिस्कस कर लिया है एक्सपोर्ट्स पे टाइमलाइंस ऑफ आइसगेट. ओके, व्हेन वाज द न्यू फॉर्मूला इंट्रोड्यूस, वो भी डिस्कस हो चुका है. Total turnover and net ITC amount and refund granted amount. There was a question, but वो question incomplete है. I couldn't understand. This was asked by Chetan. IGST. The next question is IGST refund is not credited in bank account in spite of response code coming SB000, and IGST scroll is also generated. No any response from IGST help desk from ticket rates from last 20 days. Okay, IGST refunds on exports है ना, ये altogether different topic ही है बड़ा. So वहाँ पर कैसा होता है कि अगर आपको रिफंड ना आने के 100 रीजंस है, जैसे मतलब मिसमैच हो सकता है या कुछ रीजंस हो सकता है, देयर कैन बी इशू ऑफ बैंक अकाउंट, एंड इन योर केस वेयर IG error code is 000, which means everything is fine, because error codes can be 001, 002, 5, 6, 9 and 4 and so on. In your case when it's 000 and scroll भी generate हो गया है, so you'll have to wait for some time. You can contact to the customs location again for this कि आपका क्यों नहीं आया है even after scroll. ठीक है, for that you will have to once contact with them, or else we can discuss more in details personally. There was a question being asked that Harsh Podarji asked, sir, I have a question, please unmute me from your side. Okay, we'll go to next question. Sir, but calculation net ITC in total turnover and refund amount while multiply type of transaction, how to claim multiple refund in one single month means GSTR1. Acha, this we have discussed. Refund, multiple category of refunds application can be filed for a given particular month also in the different category and different heads. Regularize refunds. I couldn't understand only this much what has been mentioned. Regularize refunds. We'll move next topic or next question. I think this question is incomplete, where it is mentioned that our services is export services without payment of tax. This seems to be an incomplete question. One of the client is engaged in exports of services in 17-18, but now he has not filed a GST application for accumulated ID. Now the accumulated ID is approximately 1 crore as of date. Can we file refund by adopting option of with payment of to offset in 3B and liability part directly get encashed in bank plus to their time limit? Yes, if there is an accumulated ITC, you can utilize those ITC for purpose of your future GST liability, and the 2-year time limits come only for the purpose or at the time of claiming the refund application. There is no time limit or expiry for utilizing your ITC balance. I hope this question has been properly answered. Need example to understand. Is there any time limit to get response from ticket? No, there is no such time limit. Inverted duty structure, can it includes a situation where purchase is 18 but zero rated supplies? Zero rated supplies, there can be zero rated supplies if you mean that it is an exempted, it is an exempted item wherein GST rate is 0. So in that case you won't get any refunds. You are neither allowed to claim the ITC also in such transaction. And when if I understand that 0, what you're trying to write is a zero rated supplies, which means exports or SEZ sales, definitely you'll get a refund. But if your product is exempted, you can neither claim ITC or nor you can claim the refund of that. Simple logic hai, if you're not paying taxes to government on your sale, government won't give you the ITC ka benefit. In case of exports of goods, services with payment of IGST, whether IGST liability need to be set off against current ITC that we have discussed. You can utilize ITC opening balance at current period also. There is no restriction, because once you file your GST या 3B, you load up your ITC, then उसका color एक single color हो जाता सारा ITC का. No such restriction. If invoice number mismatch with shipping bill, GST file, also option amendment has gone away. You'll have to again, this is a repeat question. You have to contact to your customs, respective customs location from where you have made exports. You have to make all the submissions, and then you can definitely get the refund of that. Even though काफी पुराना भी होगा matter, you will definitely get that. If you want further details, we can catch up in person. Next question is, if the company export turnover is 100 crore and domestic turnover is 15 lakhs, would you advise to continue domestic sale? Why not? There is no such issue that whether you should go with a domestic sale or not. You can have your personal calculation also, considering those aspects of refund calculation. You can check that at your end. But otherwise, there is no such issue as per my knowledge, because there are many exporters who does domestic also and exports both. So as such, there is no such issue, and you can do both. कोई issue नहीं है उसमें. How to file refund in rate difference cases? Rate difference cases, I understand inverted duty structure. In that case, we have discussed in detail कि refund application file करना होता है with submitting all the documents, and you will get the refund of accumulated ITC. Yes, we need to ensure the formula. How to decide refund period for period without payment of ID? Should be purchase period or export period? It has to be an export period because it is related to sales. We have to ensure it is a sale period, export period, and there can be cases where purchase is made in month of, let's say, April, and export is made in the month of May. In that case, you have to file your refund application for April to May. That will be a smarter option, that you file your refund application from April up till May, so that your purchase, because ITC was claimed in April and your sale was in May, and if you only apply for May, in the calculation, the ITC of that which you have claimed or purchased in the previous period won't get covered. So for that, you have to file a consolidated or a combined refund application for April and May. How to decide refund application? Again, it's a repeat question. How to claim refund? This was discussed. How to claim refund? Great. Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Sachin. Okay. Thank you so much. Exports with payment refund time period in case of IGST scroll status is successful. Okay. When the scroll status shows successful, scroll is generated. After generally refund comes within 5 to 7 working days में, तो पैसा scroll के बाद आ ही जाता है, unless there is some specific issue or other issue being pop up in your case respect to that particular shipping bill. So refund अटकता है, or else refund process हो जाना चाहिए within next 5 to 7 working days में, once the scroll is generated. Yes, there were some issues recently with the IGST portal also, that refund were not getting credited into the bank account even after scroll, but that was being rectified, and now this refund got processed. In your case, otherwise we'll have to check if there may be some other issue also, कि refund has not been processed even after scroll. But otherwise, after scroll, refund को कोई रोक नहीं सकता है. Refund has to get credited. But in your case, if you are facing problem, we'll have to check your case. We can get in touch. Exports with payment refund, how much time in case of IGST scroll is successful? Again, repeat question. Can you file LUT manually for 22-23 now, along with condition of delay? As we discussed, LUT has to be taken before entering such export sales, zero-rated sales. But there was a circular being issued जहाँ पर post facto LUT भी grant की गई थी, where they have missed out to get the LUT. We need to check that circular. वो circular बहुत पहले issue हुआ था, somewhere in 2019 or 18 or 20. You need to check that. Chances are bleak कि आपको उस चीज का LUT का कुछ मिलेगा. Manually तो कोई application, you will have to check that circular. You will find that circular. Advance received in May 20, and now we raise invoice for export sales services in April 24. Can we claim a refund of export services without payment of IGST? Yes, as we have discussed the formula and the calculation, so you can claim the refund of accumulated ITC for such transaction also. I think all the questions has been taken. If in case I have missed any questions, or in case participants have more such questions, we can discuss again tomorrow. Yeah. In case you have any details or any further clarification, you can connect me on my number, on my email ID also. That's it from my side for today. We'll definitely catch up tomorrow for further more interesting topic to be discussed upon. कल हम डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे what is the process of filing the refund application, how to track that, all the documentation required for filing refund application, risky exporter alert, very interesting topic and very common problems being faced by many of the exporter wherein उनके सारे refunds और सारे exports benefits सब stop हो जाते हैं. We'll discuss that tomorrow. Common mistakes and best practices we can follow, and definitely any more questions to be that we can discuss tomorrow. Over to you, Virag ji.
Yes, thank you so much, Sachin bhai, for wonderful deliberation. We have a request for presentation as well from the participant side, so kindly check that, and we'll circulate tomorrow, and reminders will share the recording as well. So kindly join sharp on time. With this, we are concluding our today's session. We'll meet tomorrow sharp at 6 o'clock. Thank you so much, Sachin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all the attendees.
Bye.
Thank you.